So you've probably seen the headlines. A single statement has basically thrown the US and Nigeria, one of the biggest players on the African continent, onto a diplomatic collision course. We're talking threats of military action, serious accusations. It's a lot. So what is actually going on? Let's get into it and break it all down.
Okay, here's the quote that started the firestorm. In early November 2025, you have Donald Trump making this incredibly explosive claim. He's not only suggesting he might take military action against Nigeria, but he also officially redesignated the country as a country of particular concern for religious freedom. That's a huge deal with some really serious potential consequences.
But beyond the shock value of a headline like that, what does it actually mean for the relationship between these two countries, for security in the region, and most importantly, for the people living there? We're going to cut through the noise and look at what the facts tell us.
Well, as you can imagine, Nigeria's response came back fast and it came back strong. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs basically said, hold on a minute. They really pushed back, stressing that they're committed to protecting all their citizens and that their diversity is a strength, not a weakness. And just like that, you've got a full-blown diplomatic standoff.
This really brings us to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? The headline, the statement, it all frames this crisis through one specific lens: religion. But is it really that simple? Is that the whole story? Well, according to security analysts on the ground, the reality is way, way more complicated.
To really get what's happening, you've got to look at a map like this one. This comes from the Congressional Research Service, and it's key. It shows that Nigeria isn't dealing with one big conflict. Think of it more like several different crises happening at the same time in different parts of the country, and each one has its own unique causes.
Let's just run through it real quick. Up in the northeast, you've got the long-running insurgency with groups like Boko Haram. Then you shift over to the northwest, and it's a completely different problem: rampant banditry and mass kidnappings. In the north central, it's brutal clashes between farmers and herders over resources like land and water. And that's not even everything. You've also got separatist movements in the southeast and piracy down in the Niger Delta. It's a complex picture.
And here is the fact that just doesn't fit into that simple religious narrative. It's a tough one, but it's critical. While Christian communities have, without a doubt, suffered horrific violence, security reports are clear. In the north, where a lot of this is happening, the majority of people being killed by these armed groups are actually Muslims.
So let's talk about this country of particular concern label. You'll see it called CPC. What on earth is it? Well, it's an official tag the US government can put on a country. Now, it doesn't automatically launch missiles or anything. Think of it more like unlocking a door. Behind that door are potential actions, like sanctions. It just gives the US government the option to take them.
So it's not like a switch gets flipped. There's a process. First, you get the public statement. We just saw that. Then comes the official designation, putting the country on the list. And then, and this is the key part, the government may decide to take action. It's discretionary. The big takeaway here is that the CPC label is a tool, a warning shot. It's not necessarily the final shot.
And if you look back, this whole situation isn't entirely new. The US-Nigeria relationship has always been this mix of really close partnership one minute and major disagreements the next. It's kind of like a roller coaster. You see a big weapons sale in 2017, then a CPC designation in 2020, that gets lifted in 2023, and boom, it's right back on in 2025. It just shows this is a complicated, long-running dance.
And it's important to remember, there are already rules in this game. A big one is something called the Lehigh Laws. Basically, these laws say the US can't give military help to any foreign army unit if there's credible evidence that the unit has been involved in major human rights violations. This has been a source of friction in the security partnership for years.
Okay, let's get to the elephant in the room. The most alarming part of this whole thing, the threat of actual military strikes. I mean, how real is that? Is that something that could actually happen?
The short answer? No. It's incredibly unlikely. And the reason why might surprise you. It has less to do with politics and a lot more to do with pure logistics. The simple nuts and bolts of moving military stuff around.
Here's the detail that most of the coverage has completely missed. In 2024, the US military pulled out of its main air bases in the country right next door, Niger. Those bases were everything. They were the hub for air operations across the entire region. Without them, launching any kind of strike into Nigeria becomes a logistical nightmare. It's like trying to build a house after you've already sold your toolbox and your truck.
Okay, so if military action is pretty much off the table, does any of this actually matter? Is it just talk? Oh no,
it definitely matters. So let's get into the real-world consequences. What are the things we should actually be watching out for?
It really boils down to three main areas. First, money. Just the talk of sanctions is enough to make investors really nervous, and that can mess with currency exchange rates. Second, security. You should expect any US aid to get a much closer look. It probably won't be cut off entirely, but it might come with a lot more strings attached. And third, travel. Look, there aren't any new visa bans today, but this is the kind of thing that can lead to major processing delays and reviews of student or exchange programs.
So what happens now? If you want to follow this story, here are 3 things to keep your eyes on. First, the U.S. State Department. They're going to have to issue some formal guidance explaining what this CPC thing means in practice. Second, the Nigerian government. What's their next move going to be? And third, watch the U.S. Congress. You can bet the foreign policy committees are going to have a lot to say about this.
And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. With the whole world shifting, with countries like China and Russia getting more and more involved in Africa, is this whole showdown really just about religious freedom? Or is it maybe one part of a much bigger geopolitical chess match for influence on the continent? That's the real question.